We're good?
Thank you.
May as well get that going first. Or you call to order and do it.
No mind. Let's get going, then I'll worry about that.
Good morning, everyone. We've passed 9 o'clock, so we're ready to start the meeting. Mr. Mayor?
We have the land recognition statement, and this week it's by Councillor Kerr.
We begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Next is the approval of agenda, and I turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we do have two amendments to the agenda. I have a motion moved by Councillor Olson and seconded by Councillor Kerr that the agenda be amended to include a notice of motion by Councillor Olson, as well as a new business item, consideration of application for an RFP for FCM Directors Meeting to be held in 2025. So if there's no questions on that, we can start with the vote, Mr. Mayor?
No. Yeah. Any discussion on the amendments? Not seeing any, Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So starting with Councillor Eckhart,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr,
Yes.
Councillor Niznik,
Yes.
Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
and Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
So that motion is carried. Thank you. Next item is the disclosure of any pecuniary interests or general nature thereof.
Thank you. After reviewing the agenda, is there any councillor that wishes to declare a pecuniary interest? Not seeing any, Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we do have a resolution now to go into hearing of presentations and delegations. And the first one, and I'll advise council, all our delegations this morning will be via Zoom. So the first one is the Save Your Skin Foundation, the Melanoma and Skin Cancer Group and Awareness Month. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Eckhart and seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved that council will wait until we actually have the delegation. So I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Bernard, are you ready to begin your presentation?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I see that we don't have the names I was expecting in the waiting room. I do have someone that I was not expecting, so I will bring them in just to ensure that they are part of this group.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Sweeney, are you part of the Save Your Skin Foundation? Can you please confirm?
No, that's not me. I'm with the fax presentation.
Okay, thank you. With that being said, Mr. Mayor, we do not have our presenters in the waiting room. I will send them a message. If you would like to move on to the next presentation, we do have those presenters present.
Okay, thank you. So that was the next presentation is the Fax Niagara Foundation. Are you ready for your presentation? Maybe my mic was off. Hello, fax? Are you ready for your presentation?
Good morning, everyone.
Sorry, are we on?
Rhiannon, are you good to go?
Okay, sorry about this. I didn't realize that we were in. It's freezing in and out, so hopefully we don't have technical difficulties on my side. And that's the problem with all this virtual. Good morning. We won't take up much of your time. And thank you very much for having us here this morning. I'm excited to give you some information about the Mountain View Lemonade Day for Family and Children's Services to take place June 10th. And this is the second annual event. And for those that don't know about it, we have a slight presentation here to give you some insight. And welcome to take questions after. My name is Rhiannon Burkholder, and I'm a trustee with the Family and Children's Services Foundation. I'm joined by Brett Sweeney. I see Brett's on the screen here, and I don't see who else with it. And I believe he's the Director of Public Relations and Communication. And if not, he should be, because he does a great job. The foundation has been around for nearly a quarter of a century, raising money to support missions for family and children's services. Family and Children's Services receives government funding, as you know, as a city council, and the foundation exists to raise further money to support their children. The money raised from our generous donors supports programs and services in which the agency does not get any government funding. And as you know, with the challenges that we have in municipal government, as well as our foundation, we have stresses every day and more. So to move on, our next slide. This idea came from a couple of young children who wanted to do something to help children in their community. As you may recall from last year, for those that were involved, Mountain View Lemonade Day invites other children, and we encourage them to promote something, as in selling lemonade for any cost, to help other children. And all the proceeds, 100%, goes to kids deserving some summer camp. Summer camps are in all different forms, and I'm willing to answer questions after the presentation. And thanks to our major sponsor, Mountain View Building Group, we are able to support a lot of children to go to these summer camps. And here you see a quote from, there are so many children in our community who deserve an opportunity to be friends and connect with nature and make lasting childhood memories. We also have a quote from our Mountain View sponsor, I believe, maybe not, and where they have, and it's Mark Bassiano, that is our Mountain View sponsor, and he says there are so many children in our community who deserve an opportunity to be with friends and connect with nature and make childhood memories. And that's also from Mark. I'm sorry, I just went off script a little there and I'm messed up. So we've raised over $85,000 last year from support from municipalities like yours. And our community, each one, we go right across from Fort Erie all the way to Grimsby, and we're hoping to get stands in each community to raise awareness. This should be a legacy fundraiser, so our children that are the most vulnerable in our community are supported. This year, we hope to get bigger and better. So what did we do last year? We did $85,000, and we sent 400 plus children to camp. Sending kids to camp could be day camps, could be overnight camps. And because we were still dealing with COVID last year, we also provided special camp baskets. So baskets that we can each give each family so they can do something with their children, or if the children are in foster care or wherever the needs are, and they can do some activities and do something to explore nature. They have things like the baskets included scooters, sports equipment, sprinklers, and other toys to help children remain active in their community. So this year we have, as I mentioned, we have 100 stands, and a family needs to host a successful lemonade stand. We provide everything. Next slide there, Brett, if you don't mind. Okay, there we go. We have an average of 398 children in care and 700 families that receive ongoing Services to help them do their best. And as I said earlier, so I think the slide has changed from the one I had, guys, but this is okay. We can go with it. I think you're getting the gist of what we're doing. So 100% goes to our children that to summer camp, any money raised. Next slide. I don't know if Brett's frozen or not, but that's okay. I'm sorry for delaying any of this. Or am I frozen? There he is. All right, I'm going to keep talking. So registration opens today. Today is June 3rd, or sorry, it is May 3rd, and it does open today. And it will be open today. Oh, there we go, more info for Family and Children's Services. So registration starts today, and we provide everything, including the banner, there's the stand, we have jugs, we provide the lemonade, we provide t-shirts and hats, stickers, and we provide everything that a child or a family needs to succeed. So their registration, you could go on the website to find out how to get registered. And we are asking each municipality of Niagara to help the summer a little sweeter by declaring we're willing to, by making awareness to our June 10th campaign. Thank you. Our June 10th campaign in your community. And we are willing, and we would appreciate June 10th be declared a Mountain View Lemonade Day for Family and Children's Services Niagara. If there are any questions, I'm going to be happy to help you with answer any of them, or my colleague here, Brett, will be able to help, as I'm hoping we're not freezing up. It is a little difficult. I must have a laptop that is not showing where we're at. So that's our presentation for today. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Oh, where I am. I think we can go full screen now, Brett, so we can see if there's questions.
Oh, can you hear me?
Now I can. Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, my mic keeps cutting out every 5 seconds. It just
Yeah, we
seems,
have trouble today.
yes, indeed.
I don't hear any questions if you want the truth.
Okay, anyway, any questions from councilors on the presentation? Go ahead, Councilor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. So we, like the mayor said, we were part of this presentation last year. How many stands were set up in Pelham last year?
Rhiannon, are you okay if I jump in on this one?
Yes, absolutely, because it is cutting out a bit for me. Thank you, Brett.
Sure, yes, thank you for the question. So we had overall last year 95 stands across Niagara, and we tried to distribute them according to population size. And I believe last year in Pelham we had approximately 10 stands. And but that's certainly not a quota or a limit. So we're happy to have as many as we possibly can in your community.
No, that's great participation by Pelham. So looking forward to doing that again this year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Brett. Good morning, Rhiannon. Brian Eckert
Oh,
here.
good morning.
I
Hi, Brian.
maybe should have checked with our town solicitor, but I'm going to give a shameless plug here to Family and Children's Services and the foundation board. I currently serve on the main fax board, and I'm winding down my term this year. And I've been there for 14 years on the board of directors. I can't say enough how much the foundation board does in the past and carrying forward into the future and the present, of course, to assist children and families in our communities. This is a prime example of corporate sponsors jumping on board so that these kids can, or families can open up stands at no cost to themselves, and all of the proceeds go to benefit kids in the Niagara region. I was pleased to be present at our Facts Gala last week, and that was a rousing success after not having one since 2019. So again, a shameless plug. Remember June the 10th. Get your hand in your pocket. If you don't like lemonade, make a donation. And thank you guys for doing this, and good luck on June 10th.
Thank you, Brian, and I don't believe that they pay you to be the director, so I think there's no pecuniary interest. You're good. Thanks a lot for the plug, and as he says, June 10th, and if you don't want to just go out and spend $20 on a thing of lemonade, you can also put up a stand. I'm sure there's children, grandchildren, or anybody in your community. I encourage you to register your name or the name of your group. We like to have groups of people, if there's a soccer club or anything. Or if you know of like let's say there's a business out there that's willing to have something in their front. We've had many businesses that have really stepped up to the plate and really have been generous and let us to put a stand there. Please, I encourage everybody to declare June 10th Mountain View Lemonade Day, and hopefully if there's any other questions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other questions for the presenters? Not seeing any. Again, thank you very much for your presentation this morning.
Thank you so much for your time. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Have a good meeting.
Thank you very much. I will turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we have a motion moved by Councillor Wink and seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that Council received the delegation from FACS and regarding the Lemonade Day 2023 for information.
Thank you. Any further discussion from council? Not seeing any?
Starting with the vote, Councillor Kerr,
Yes.
Councillor Niznik,
Yes.
Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand,
Yes.
and Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion is carried. So it appears our first delegation has still not arrived, so we can move to our third delegation, the Pelham, Lincoln Pelham Library presentation, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. And is the library ready to proceed? Ms. Andrews, you have the floor, and thank you for coming direct from Hollywood. And we can't hear you.
It looks like they may not be here yet.
It appears that Ms. Andrews has just dropped off. We'll allow her a moment to rejoin,
Okay?
and she has rejoined.
Here I am. Sorry to keep you waiting.
Oh, there we go. We hear you loud and clear. Go ahead.
Okay. Hello.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties, as you can tell. So okay, can you hear me now?
Yes?
Okay. I'm not able to see the slides, so I'm hoping that somebody can advance those for us as we go.
Yes, just whenever you want to. Oh, so you can't see the slides. Well,
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I will share their presentation if you'll just allow me one moment.
okay. We seem to have some gremlins in the system today.
It appears that we've lost Ms. Andrews again.
Good morning.
Can you see the screen now, Ms. Andrews?
I am not able to see it, and there it is. Hallelujah. Thank you. Whoever's helping, thank you very much.
Very
Good
good.
morning, Mayor Junkin and members of council and staff. I'm so sorry for the technical glitch. We're so happy to be here to share a little bit of the activities of our first year as Lincoln Pelham Public Library. As you know, in April 1st, 2022, we merged our two municipal library systems, and we've been thrilled with what we've been able to accomplish already. We started with fantastic staff and great branding and the support of our councils and our staff of the towns in Lincoln and Pelham. And we hit the ground running with summer programming in all 4 branches and thousands of program attendees, both in-house and at our many outreach events at area parks and community events. We are fortunate to partner with many community groups, and this helps us increase our reach and deepen our impact. Over 29,000 people attended the 880 programs the library delivered in 2022. We registered 2,200 new members, and we drove over 1,000 kilometers in Rosie, our library van, spreading the library love. We have had such a wonderful response to Rosie and our outreach programs that we've noted the need for borrowing on these visits, and we've began thus planning for bookmobile services that we hope will begin in 2024. The rapid growth in our area poses challenges and opportunities for library facilities and services, and to this end, we've been planning for branch improvements. Grant applications have been submitted to the Green and Inclusive Community Buildings Fund for major renovations to the MK Rittenhouse branch and the Fonthill Library. Accessibility must be addressed in both cases, and renovations also offer the opportunity to make the buildings more efficient, sustainable, and resilient. We're planning a capital campaign to address some of the costs of these projects, and we are preparing a financial feasibility study to assist with this. The library's launched a community survey that will help inform the strategic planning process for our board of directors. And we encourage you all to help us by completing it and encouraging others to do so as well, so that we can hear as many voices as possible. It is available on our website. So the library began a new fundraising program in 2022 that includes Books on the Bench. And this is a picture of our first event that was really successful with Adam Schultz last year. It features a series of events with local authors and local food and drink. We also had a trivia night, a silent auction, and a holiday giving campaign. These events, along with generous donations from the Wise Guys Charity Fund, the Niagara Community Foundation, Pelham Art Festival, Lincoln and Pelham Lions, and Pelham Rotary, and lots of individual community members have enabled us to purchase equipment for our makerspaces, provide internet hotspots to borrow, and other items to inspire and engage our members. 2 permanent story walks are an example of some of the wonderful things we've been able to purchase with donations and grants. This story walk is in Fonthill at Woodstream Park. And the next one is at Hillary Ballpark in Beamsville. As for borrowing, we are seeing people back in the branches again as the effects of the pandemic have eased. 80,000 in-person visits and 145,000 virtual visits show us that our communities love their library. 288,000 physical items were borrowed, and if we add the e-books, e-audio, and music and videos, we loaned a total of over 360,000 items in 2022. We added 4 new e-resources in 2022 that can be accessed from home on your computer, device, or smart TV. And these are easy to use. All you need is a Lincoln Pelham Public Library card. Canopy provides access to more than 30,000 films, including Canadian independent films, documentaries, film festival participants, award-winning films, and foreign language titles. Canopy also includes hundreds of K-series, which are series like Great Courses that have post-secondary level education videos instructed by professors, subject matter experts, and industry-leading professionals. And finally, there's Canopy Kids, which has a lot of children's movies, television series, and shorts. We added National Geographic Virtual Library as well, and this database has all the magazine archives from 1888 to current, which is really something. Also, National Geographic People, Animals, The World, and National Geographic Kids. It's a great resource. We also offer CBC Corner, which brings together the really wide variety of CBC and Radio Canada digital content and resources in a single experience, engaging interface. It allows you to discover news, entertainment, TV, radio shows, podcasts, news in foreign language, and language learning app. A lot of great resources there. Not pictured is passenger and immigration data index, which is useful for families who are working on their genealogy, and a lot of people are doing that. Our Library of Things is filled with items that would be outside of traditional books, magazines, and DVDs, and can be borrowed from the library. In 2023, we added CO2 monitors, which can be borrowed to identify air quality in your residence and detect areas of poor ventilation. We also lend museum passes, and each branch will have a family pass that can be borrowed for a week and will allow entry to 2 adults and 3 children to all Niagara museums, which is really terrific. We're adding Nintendo Switch games to our collection. The idea with this is that residents can try the games before they purchase them, and they can borrow them if they only want to play the game for a couple of weeks. These games are quite expensive to buy, and we're hoping that this helps our residents with their pocketbooks during a time of inflation. Finally, we also added C-Pen readers, which are devices that read text. As you draw them across the text of a book or magazine, it shows the text on the pen as it reads. And these devices can be helpful for those with dyslexia, English as a second language, and new readers. They, again, are expensive to purchase, so borrowing one from the library and discovering if it's helpful for you is a good way to make a decision before you purchase. As we enter into spring, this is a reminder that we have fishing rods, tackle kits, and nets and life jackets to borrow. These kits are meant to introduce kids to another outdoor activity, and they've added benefit of trying something out and seeing if a child enjoys it before shelling out money for your own fishing tackle at home. Maybe the grandkids are visiting, and this is something that you can use to have a fun weekend adventure. Glad to see the snow is gone, but here's one slide that shows the past winter that we added snowshoes and poles. We have a variety of sizes, so the whole family can borrow them. And it's, again, something that not a lot of people have tried, and maybe they want to try it out before they purchase their own. We also have Wi-Fi hotspots that give unlimited data for up to 5 devices at a time, ukuleles, guitars, a telescope, nature backpacks, launch pads, park passes, puzzles, and more items to borrow in our Library of Things. This year, we're adding a metal detector, and we have a program coming up on that, as well as a GoPro camera to borrow. Our seed library and seed share program has really taken off. We've instituted a seed potting bench at each branch so that it's easy for people to locate at all of our branches. Many of the seeds were donated this year, and most of the seed filing was completed by volunteers, so it's been a real community project. Upcoming CD Saturday program on May 27th at the Rittenhouse branch will feature seed and plant swap and highlight our greenhouse and pollinator garden. Starting next month or so, we'll be tagging all the books in our collection, DVDs and magazines, with RFID technology. This is radio frequency identification that allows for the use of technology to check in and out materials. And it frees our staff up to help with other interactions with our customers. And it also allows the library to add services that increase access to our holds and our browsing. Because of a wonderful community grant obtained last year, we're adding this lending machine at the Meridian Center, you can see pictured, in Fonthill, and we'll be adding lockers outside the Pelham branches for 24/7 holds pickup in the coming months. This equipment will come in especially handy when we're involved in renovation of the Fonthill branch, as they provide access both to browsing at the one at the Meridian Center and for holds pickup at our branches. On this picture, you can see the lending machine. It's very similar to the one we'll have. So I'd like to hand it over to Susan DiBattista and introduce her as well. She's our Director of Community Engagement, and she'll talk to you about our programming and outreach.
Hi there. As Julie mentioned, I'm Susan DiBattista, and I'm the Director of Community Engagement for the library. One of the big projects we've undertaken over the past 12 months is to begin aligning Pelham and Lincoln's library programming and outreach and our partnerships. So I'd like to share a little bit with you about how that's been going. So next slide, please. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, leave that slide as it is. This actually is a great slide because it shows our early literacy programming for children ages 5 and under. That kind of programming encourages parents and caregivers to interact with their children through singing, talking, reading, writing, and playing. As part of this programming, we offer storytime sessions, and we participate in a program called 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten, which is a challenge that encourages families to read 1,000 books together before their kids start kindergarten. And these are some of our adorable program participants that we get to spend time with in our libraries. Next slide, please. We incorporate science, technology, engineering, arts, and math activities, otherwise known by the acronym STEAM. We incorporate those activities into most of our programming to help kids develop skills in creative and scientific thinking. Examples that are pictured here for school-age kids include the use of our technology equipment, such as our 3D printer, as well as developing creativity through our art programming. Next slide, please. And pictured here is one of our staff members, Margaret, who coordinates our extremely popular Books Unboxed service for grades 6 and older. This is a bi-monthly subscription box service where Margaret and Jennifer Bennett from the Pelham Library put together books for participants based on their requests. So Books Unboxed has helped us to actually identify areas where we can support that tween and teen age group through our collections and our programming. Next slide, please. We also offer programming for families and adults of all ages. So one of our popular programs over the past year is pictured here on the left. It was a story time with a soldier, which was a program we did around Remembrance Day with Master Warrant Officer Haley McClellan. We also offer a lot of intergenerational programs, such as the painting class that's pictured here. Our adult programming ranges quite broadly from author visits to instructional seminars. As an example, this month, we're presenting a series of workshops on gardening with native plants. And this is actually a programming that came to us from a suggestion from Councillor Olson. And so we're pleased to offer that kind of programming to the community. The library is also a place where people come together to socialize while they're doing crafts or doing things like playing Scrabble. Next slide, please. Rosie is our outreach van, and she helps us to connect with the community outside of our physical spaces. So outreach sites include the Pelham Band Shell, parks, local schools, and seniors' residences. This summer, we're actually planning to offer weekly outreach activities in Pelham, so stay tuned for more about that over the next month or so. Next slide. We're always looking for opportunities to work with other organizations and develop partnerships. And a couple of examples. On this slide, we've recently worked with the Canadian Library Project on a grassroots art installation that acts as a memorial to all missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and children. And you can stop by the Font Hill and Beamsville locations to see these installations that we have in place. Next slide, please. A recent community partnership that we had was One Book, One Niagara. This initiative brought together all the Niagara Public Libraries, as well as the libraries from Brock University and Niagara College, to connect the community through the shared experience of reading and then coming together to discuss the book. This year's selection was the book called Care of: Letters, Connections, and Cures by the author Ivan Coyote. And these are a couple of photos from the grand finale, which was a special evening with Ivan Coyote at Brock. And I'll pass it back to Julie. The next slide.
All righty. Thank you, Susan. And thank you all very much. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them for you.
Excellent. Thank you for a great presentation. Just amazing the programming that you offer the residents in both Lincoln and Pelham. And obviously, it's through that programming that's keeping the library so relevant to the communities. So thank you for that. I will open it to questions from council, and I see Councillor Olson has some.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to our presenters. You're looking at what you're seeing here is the results of a lot of innovation, a lot of hard work, and all of those things are appreciated. You know, you don't just come up with these programs, I don't think, just out of the air, and to make them work, to execute them is really pretty important, and our staff is should be thanked for that. To Julie, if I could, Mr. Mayor, through you, what is the status of the bookmobile? I didn't quite understand the total picture of that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. So we are entering into the RFP process as we speak for the purchase of the van. We know it's going to take quite some time for it to get here as supply chains are still a bit of a challenge. So we're entering into that process right now. We are still hopeful that we have a Trillium Foundation grant in the works for this project. So we're hopeful that we'll get some good news there as well. But that's where we're at right now. We're in the RFP process for the vehicle.
Okay, thank you. Do you intend to show us pictures of Rosie every time, or do you come up here so we have to see them every time? So the second question.
If you want us
Mr. Mayor,
to.
Yes. Through the second question through you, Mr. Mayor, is about your plans for the Fond Hill Library, and your participation was likely to be the redesign. I don't think we've totally concluded that we have to have an opportunity or have to remodel the Fond Hill Library, but I don't think there's too many alternatives. And what is the process you're undertaking to make sure we get the best for when it comes to redesigning the facility?
Through you, Mayor Junkin, to the councillor. Thank you for the question. We are just about to embark on a steering committee, if you will. It has a loose title, to start planning for this project. There are, as I mentioned, some grant applications in the works for it as well. We've begun to come together and discuss what we would like to see in the branch and the best use of the space. So as we go, we'll be meeting bi-weekly to get the plans firmed up and bring those before council as soon as we're ready to do so.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the public, to Mr. Mard, are we participating in assisting in this, and you know the feasibility of this, the rebuild of the museum or the library?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we are looking into, well, there's been grants applied for that particular project. Right now, we're looking at putting an RFP together for retaining architectural services to do that work.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Olson. Any other questions from council? Not seeing any. Other comment that I'd like to make is the rent a book that will be put in the MCC. Excuse me for not knowing this. Is that already there?
It's just going to be delivered very soon, Mayor Junkin. We're just anticipating that any day now. So probably sometime next week it'll be on site, and then there will be a time of getting it up to speed and getting our materials tagged so that they can be in the machine.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. Without any further questions, just again, thank to you and your team for your innovation and being such a great asset to our individual communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Junkin, and sorry for the technical glitches, everyone.
Oh, I think that was at our end. Have a good day, and we'll talk to you soon. And I now turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we have a resolution moved by Councillor Hildebrand and seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that Council received the delegation from Julie Andrews, CEO, and Susan DiBattista, Director of Community Engagement, regarding the 2022-23 Lincoln Pelham Public Library Year in Review for information.
Any other discussion from members of council? Not seeing any, Mr. Clerk?
Commencing with the vote, Councillor Niznik,
Yes.
Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand,
Yes.
Councillor Kerr,
Yes.
and Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
That motion is carried. Thank you. So our delegation from Save the Skin Foundation are not available. They'll be provided an opportunity to present at another time. So with that, we're going to move on to item number 6 on the agenda, the adoption of the minutes from April 19th.
Yes.
So I have a motion moved by Councillor Niznik and seconded by Councillor Kerr. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. C-08/2023, regular council meetings of April 19th, 2023.
Thank you. Council, and after viewing the minutes, is there any omissions or additions that any councillor would like to see? I'm not seeing any, Mr. Clerk?
Commencing with the vote, Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr,
Yes.
Councillor Niznik,
Yes.
and Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
That motion is carried. Thank you. Moving now to item number 7. If there's any items councillors wish to lift from the consent agenda, none have been identified to staff at this point.
Okay. I'll ask that question again, though. Is there any items that any individual councillor would like to lift in the consent agendas? Not seeing any, Mr. Clerk?
Moving on to item 8, then, the consent agenda. I have a motion moved by Councillor Eckhart and seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that the consent agenda items as listed on the May 3rd, 2023 council agenda be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved. And since there's only 3 items, maybe we can deal with all 3 as a block, Your Worship.
Of course. So any councillor have any comments to make on any of the consent agenda items? And I see Councillor Olson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Marr, the winter operations. If I might ask, we've got a number of new assets that we're going to be purchasing. We have a backhoe for $240,000, and we have a landscape truck at $80,000, and a utility van at another $80,000, and a small SUV for bylaw, plus a combination snowplow truck. And I bring the snowplow truck up because that appears to have been part of the difficulties that you were having in last winter there. So what is the delivery and order status of those items?
To the Director of Public Works, Mr. Marr.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So with respect to the combination snowplow unit, the one that was approved by this council as part of the budget process, capital budget process in 2023, is currently out for tender. We're expecting that delivery of that unit will not be available until sometime summer or late fall of 2024. There's quite a bit of advanced lead time on these specialized pieces of equipment. The backhoe that you did identify, that also is out for tender currently, and we're expecting a delivery on that within 5 to 6 months from award. So that we'll most likely be receiving that piece of equipment sometime the end of this calendar year. With respect to the other vehicles, there has been issues with securing heavier type equipment. For instance, our 1-ton trucks, we haven't been able to secure those through dealer RFPs. And in fact, we ordered one back in 2020. That order has been canceled by the manufacturer, and we are currently looking at now partnering with the region of Niagara and going through their tendering process for our 1-ton trucks, our light-duty vehicles, our Sprinter service van. Those pieces of equipment will now be working with the region and taking advantage of their buying power to secure those pieces of equipment. So dates on those probably within the next year, based on when the region can get that tender out and secure those pieces of equipment.
Thank you, Director. To the councillor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. So we've established a sort of a cadence of buying a snowplow unit every year for the next 4 or 5 years, and it looks like that's going to be interrupted from what I'm hearing today. Does that mean we're going to have more issues next year with failures of equipment, things like that, do you think?
To the Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so that's a strong possibility. Our fleet is aging. Most of the big heavy pieces of equipment are between 10 and 14 years. Usually the lifespan on a snowplow is about 10. Some are much older than that. We're looking at being proactive and trying to replace our fleet on a year-by-year basis, at least bringing in one new truck. Yes, the delivery is long. So we'll make do with what we've got and perform ongoing maintenance with our fleet, looking to replace those pieces of equipment as soon as possible. The other consideration is that the town of Pelham has grown significantly. Looking back, and staff will be bringing a report back to council at some point later this summer, early fall, with respect to how much the town has grown and how little our fleet and manpower has increased over that period of time. And so we're running our equipment, it's older, nearing the end of its life, and we're extending length of routes, trying to keep up with the growth of Pelham. So definitely there's going to be a requirement for additional vehicles and equipment as well as manpower to carry out winter operations and keep our same level of service. And we'll be reporting back to council on that later on this year.
Thank you, Director. To the councillor.
Yes, thank you for that, Mr. Mayor. Through you again. So the machinery, we're in a position where we should do something, perhaps to backstop that. And I don't propose to know what the answer would be to that, but to the manpower, is there any possibility, and I understand that you were investigating the possibility of sharing drivers so the machines could stay on the road for longer periods of time and not be limited by driving hours?
To the Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. So when we have a major storm event and there's only a certain amount of hours that our drivers can drive, so we have a very limited capacity with respect to manpower. And when we do have extended periods and storm events, then they do sometimes run out of hours and we need to park those pieces of equipment. So staff have identified that. Mind you, we've had a pretty, nice winter. I wouldn't say nice, this past winter has been pretty mild. So fortunately, we were able to keep up on the level of service during that period of time. Not always the case, and staff are looking at bringing forward options to council with respect to how we plan on managing the winter operations and trying to provide some 24/7 service. So that we'll be bringing a report back to council again later, probably late summer on that.
Thank you, Director. Councillor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Marr, for those answers. It does raise a sense of urgency, I think, in the replacement of our equipment and doing this, because I don't see the equipment's not getting any newer. So I will just leave it at that, but thank you for your answer.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments from any councillors? My own question to the Director. So great to see that we're partnering with the region on a few of these purchases. Do you see that as building even more consensus with the region in further purchases?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, I do. It's that the volume of equipment that we're purchasing is so small that we're not getting a lot of interest from, whether it's a light pickup duty truck, we don't get a lot of interest even from local dealers. And to partner up with a larger purchaser with more buying power makes a lot of sense, and we'll be continuing to do that.
Excellent. I agree. I don't know what the PW budgets are, but the total budgets, our budget is 25 million and the region's at 1.4 billion. So what I'm sure their public work budget is probably 250 or 300 million. So yeah, it's great to be able to piggyback onto their purchasing power. Great initiative. Any other questions? Not seeing any, I turn to the clerk.
Commencing with the vote, Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr,
Yes.
Councillor Niznik,
Yes.
Councillor Olson,
Yes.
and Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
That motion is carried. Thank you. Moving now to staff reports, 10. I have a motion moved by Councillor Kerr and seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that council receive report number 2023-0110 Far Road and River Road roadside ditching and culvert improvements for information, and that council direct staff to complete a detailed inspection and survey of the roadside ditches along Far Road and River Road, including the culverts within the town's road allowance, and complete the required maintenance and repairs necessary to ensure that the town's infrastructure is performing as intended.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I will open it to council, and then I have a comment to make on that. But first, I turn to council. Any comment from any members of council? And Council Niznik.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a question for Mr. Marr. Just wondering that, I know this is a huge issue, and my engineering background is like this big, so bear with me. But based on the presentations that were given, and I know we directed staff to sort of look at the ditches and the dredging and the possibilities of that, but I guess my question is, if we're going to spend that sort of amount of money out of the budget, is that going to alleviate the issue that's currently there? And if not, what are the other options that we might look at?
To the director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if we were to go ahead and reditch all of Far Road and River Road and either replace or do major maintenance or clean out of all the culverts, it's not going to drastically improve any drainage on private properties. The roadside ditches and culverts that are within the road allowance are meant to drain the road, A, and then B, ensure that there's no flooding onto private properties from drainage off the roadway. So obviously, town staff would go and do an investigation and take a look at all the ditches and culverts to make sure that any water, even though the roadside ditches are meant to drain private properties, we would make sure that there was no backup or drainage causing negative impact to any private properties on those roads. But to go ahead and reditch everything will not substantially improve the drainage issues within those private areas that are experiencing the flooding.
Thank you, Director. Councillor?
Yeah, thank you. That's what sort of my understanding or thinking was when we talked about it earlier. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Eckert?
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Marr, I was out at this area that we're concerned about, and we had the presentations at the last meeting. And I guess my concern is, and I think you maybe answered it with Councillor Niznik's question, but it seems to me that if we spend the money to dig out the ditches, all we're doing is moving more water faster to an area that we have a problem of drainage on the private property. So I think you answered my question earlier, but I would be hesitant to spend a lot of money in an area where, as you've already said, it's not going to really improve that situation, is it?
Thank you, Councillor. Any comments from the Director?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Roadside ditches, again, are meant to collect and divert water from the road allowance itself, not to drain private property. Also, when we do ditching programs, it's usually to improve or but maintain the original hydraulic capacity of that ditch. Also, when you do remove vegetation from the ditch line, it allows the water to get to the lowest point quicker. When a ditch is grassed, it basically slows the movement of water, allows infiltration back into the ground prior to it getting to a point where it's discharged. So, but we do have an annual ditching program, and we do use that. Ditches fill in with road materials and other materials, and periodically those ditches need to be dredged or excavated to restore its hydraulic capacity. So that's the intent of our annual ditching program. And again, in this particular instance, ditching the full length of Far and River roads, I don't think would increase or would reduce the amount of flooding on private properties, and would most likely result in quicker discharge to the downstream areas by the outlet. So that's the concern.
Thank you. Counselor?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Wink, I believe.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the director. A lot of people would be looking at this and saying there's other alternatives, and we would be better to wait for those alternatives. But correct me if I'm wrong, at some point in time in the near future, in the next year or two, if we don't dredge these ditches at this point in time, we're going to have to do it in the next couple of years anyway. Like I drove by the properties yesterday, or the roads, and some of the weeds or vegetation are taller than I am in those ditches. So could you make comment on that, please?
To the director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so I don't have the exact number of kilometers of roadside ditches that we have in town at the moment, but we do have a lot. Our annual program is about $100,000, and that gives us anywhere between 8 and 10 kilometers of roadside ditching per year. In this particular instance, if we were to go in and re-ditch all of Far and River Road and clean out all the culverts, you're in excess of, well, you're nearing $60,000 of work. That would eat up most of our annual budget for roadside ditching. And there's obviously other areas within the town that are going to need to have ditching done to restore the hydraulic capacity of the ditches. I believe there is opportunity for staff under our current operating budget to have a look at the areas on Far and River Road to see if there's any critical areas that need to be addressed and culverts that need to be replaced or cleaned out. That's something that we can do, and definitely absorb that as part of our annual operating budget. If there's areas that are identified that need to be ditched with our subcontractor that we contract this work out to, that could also be a consideration. But as of right now, the 2023 program does not. We have other areas that we've identified for ditching within the town. Obviously, if there's critical areas that have been identified by engineering that need to be re-ditched, then we can include that as part of that annual tender, but take a more selective look at what needs to be done instead of a full removal of all the material within the roadside ditches at Far and River.
So just to thank you for that explanation, but if we don't do it all, we're still going to have to clean out those ditches in the next few years anyway, what we didn't handle this year.
To the director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so there's an annual maintenance program in place, and we intend to, eventually, we will be addressing all the ditches within the town. So it's just a matter of when we get to that, correct? I can't guarantee if it'll be in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
But it would be at some point.
At some point in the future. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Counselor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. You know, we've been dealing with the Far Road, River Road since last council, and these are some of those issues that I think we have to address and prioritize. Like Councilor Wink said, eventually we're going to have to do it. I think the eventually eventuality has occurred now. This, to me, ditching and culvert replacement is the first step in addressing the Far and River Road area. And I think as a priority, we as a council have to realize that that's what we need to do and use the town budget to address that area this coming year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other questions? I see Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I think it's been highlighted that the move to do the entire length of ditches is not going to resolve the issue that keeps recurring in front of us relative to the Far Road properties. I understand there's a routine situation that ditches are cleaned. I guess from my perspective, looking at it, there are priority areas even within the Far Road area that may need addressing, and the magnitude of that correction may not take the full $60,000. So we might be looking at identifying, from my perspective, identifying the most critical areas. I think part of it is that we have some residents in that area that believe the ditching will solve the problem, and we also have residents that don't believe any of the ditching will solve the problems. I think by addressing the major issues first, then we have an opportunity to show what is probably going to be the preferred option for dealing with the issue of on a larger scale going into the future. So I guess what I'm looking at in terms of here, there was suggestion that there could be staff examination, prioritizing critical zones within that area, and developing the costing plan for taking care of that. It's kind of like the infamous, you demonstrate what you have done and identify and say, well, these are the limitations. I think the low vegetation areas and everything else, which would be part of it just because of the length, maybe utilizing finances that we're going to need for something bigger in the future. So that's just how I would be. Sometimes the famous line is, you need to identify what's most critical first, deal with that. Looking at a larger scale project and doing a full excavation from my perspective, and then having to come back with a whole other big entity to deal with the properties themselves. We may have just jumped ahead of ourselves a little bit, but that's just my perspective of trying to look at it, as I call it, from the farmer's perspective of sometimes you like to do everything all at once, but other times you want to invest judiciously first, see what the results are, and then go forward from that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any comments on that from the director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, I have no comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. So here is my comment on this, and I'll throw it out to council. I can remember first elected as mayor in 2018, and the financial position of the town was a lot worse then. And I remember that to save the $100,000 at that time, we actually stopped ditching in the rural part of the town for the 1 year. So, and there was no, it's not a catastrophe when that happens, it just put everything back a year. So I'm wondering if instead of having, I believe, and before we continue, you're hoping to get this work, this study and this work done this year, I take it, to the director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, correct. It's part of the 2023 operating budget,
Okay.
and so that money will be spent in 2023.
Okay,
The full
thank you.
value of that, yes.
Thank you. So I guess what I'm, would it help at all? I mean, we're still got to be prudent with the taxpayer money. Instead of having the FAR drainage as an entity among itself, and then the town drainage also an entity among itself, is there not a way that we could do the study on this whole FAR drainage complex, do the work, and then any money that's after that, if we still have money left over, let's say we in the drainage budget that we have already established, we use that money to do FAR drainage, and then if there's any money after that, then we just do minimal drainage in the rest of the town. Instead of having, and I forget what the budget is, two separate budgets, let's combine them, do FAR drainage first, and then just use whatever money's after that to do the rest of the town. Is that feasible?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so staff are happy to take any direction the council wants to give with respect to our operations and what to prioritize. Just to be clear, what council has approved as part of the 2023 operating capital budget, we have an operating budget item of $100,000 to do reditching. So that work is, even though it's part of an operating budget, it's tendered. We bring a contractor in, they've got specialized equipment. We do 8 to 10 kilometers of road based on what the prices we receive at the time of tendering with that $100,000. That's an operating budget that has to get spent in 2023. Staff have identified areas throughout the town that require reditching. If council's preference is to focus on Far and River Road, we'll be happy to oblige and do that. There will be areas in the town that we have planned on doing this year that would have to be deferred to 2024. We also have a capital budget of $60,000, which was approved as part of the 2023 capital budget. That project is to address large culverts that our staff can't complete with our own resources. So again, if there's a major culvert failure, and we don't normally identify these until such time that we've identified an issue, we'll put together a tender quotation, go through the quotation process. We'll hire a contractor that's got larger size equipment and resources to be able to replace those larger size culverts. So that $60,000 capital is usually used for major culvert replacements. And then as part of our normal operating budget, we have staff resources and funds built into that budget, operating budget, to be able to go out and address minor ditching issues, culvert maintenance, small culvert replacement. So the $60,000 capital budget, I think that needs to be held and reserved for larger replacements that need to be done. Obviously, the $100,000 operating budget for ditching, we can assign that and prioritize what areas we do with that fund. Council's wishes to look at Far and River Road and do those areas, we'll be more than happy to do that. And then as part of our normal operating budget, we can do smaller culvert repairs, replacements, and cleaning out of those culverts. So I hope that answers your question, a little bit long-winded.
Yes, it does. I'll throw that back to council and see if they think that's a viable solution, or do you, council, want to continue on with two separate budgets and two separate entities? Any comments on that? Council Nesnick.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So I believe that the report that Mr. Marr gave was part of the current budget. I don't think two separate budgets have been created. But irregardless, I don't think that Far Road should take precedence over other ditches that are in serious need of reditching and culvert replacement. I think if we took a more of a measured approach, such as Councillor Kerr suggested, that they do an inspection, they see where it is that maybe some culverts need either some replacing and or some reditching, but to do the entire thing, it's not going to solve the problem of the drainage anyways, so I'm not sure spending that sort of money on that. That's over half the budget in one small area is a good use of funds.
Thank you. So let me ask the director, did I misinterpret that? I thought that you had the one budget, and now that are you taking from that budget to do the FAR drainage, or was the FAR drainage system going to be a separate entity?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so as part of our 2023 operating budget, we have $100,000 dedicated to roadside ditching. That would be the funding source to do the ditching work on Far and River Road.
Okay.
Okay, we also have, as part of our normal operating budget, we have time and materials and manpower and equipment built into addressing maintenance on smaller size culverts.
Okay.
We could, our own forces could do work in replacement of some of those smaller culverts within those areas. The $60,000 that was approved as part of the 2023 capital budget, my recommendation would be not to use that to fund anything at Far and River Road. That is meant for larger size culverts that require replacement, and that's beyond the capabilities and resources that our own crews have. Those types of work get tendered and subcontracted out, contracted out. So that $60,000 capital, I would say, doesn't get touched for this particular project.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, excellent. And so the FAR drainage is indeed coming out of the original operating budget that we were going to do ditching within the town anyway, and other than the 60,000 capital. Is that correct, that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct.
Okay, excellent. My mistake. I still, obviously, my own feeling is that the FAR drainage does, as Councilor Wink has pointed out, it's going to have to get done in the next 2 or 3 years anyway, and anything that we can do to alleviate that problem and perhaps narrow down where the remaining problem is, myself, I'm all for that. So I will be voting for this staff report and also for the ditching program that you obviously have in mind for this area. I think it's money well spent, and as I drive down through that area, it's quite evident that we haven't had our ditching units out in that part of the town for quite some time. So I'm all for the for your proposal. Thank you. Any other questions, Councilor Kerr?
Yes, in reading it, I mean, we see a lot of if this, then this economics attached to it. My instinct, Mr. Mayor, is that we have a full staff report on what really is needed. It says, if there were 6 culverts that require, it's going to cost this. If we have to clean out this, it's going to cost this. I think having a little bit more comprehensive report is going to give us a better handle on the economics of this particular situation. We know that some work has to be done.
Yep.
I guess the question is going to come back to how much work has to be done in the greatest detail. I recognize it's moving the priority list that's been established in the past, and they've done this, and they had scheduled in 2023. This is the kind of ditching we were going to try and do based on a priority basis, is my anticipation. So I'm still going to come back to hopefully that we can have a comprehensive report, and then you could establish some of it with that. It might be easier for myself to say, okay, we're talking potentially 60,000, but if it suddenly turned into be 80,000, well, that's a secondary thing. Or it might only turn out to be 40,000 when you look at culvert blowouts and things. So that's just my observations, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilor. Any other question? Oh, Mr. CAO, I see you're leaning forward to speak.
I am. I'm worried we're losing the bouncing ball here. The staff report really has 2 points for you. One, receive, check, that's pretty easily done.
Yep.
The second part, what our recommendation to you, and you're free to vary this, is to direct us to go and take a look.
Yep.
And then we already have the existing budgets, as Mr. Mars said. He's got $60,000 to fix culverts. He might need to fix 1 or 2 or 6.
Yep.
But if he's got 60,000, now, basically his advice is, we may have a real culvert need somewhere else, and so we need to keep some of that money. But we also have that ditching money. We won't come back with a report saying we're going to spend $3,000 of a $100,000 budget or $30,000 of a $100,000 budget. However, if you feel there's sufficient community need, as per Councillor Wink's earlier commentary, it may be that, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, Councillor Wink, but if you think that it's appropriate to devote disproportionate resources to Far and River Road this year, we will comply. Beyond that, we already have approved budgets. You've done your job. You've created a budget. You've told us to spend 100,000 dredging ditches this year. We have that, so there won't be a report saying we're going to spend 15 of it here. They'll just do that. If it turns out it's 15 or 10 or 30 or what have you, unless you go out of your way, because council is in control. So if you want to direct us to absolutely do all of that ditching, which Mr. Marr is recommending against, however, you can tell us to do that and we will happily take that direction. So you don't need, you can tell us to give you any other report on this or anything else if you wish. But we already have all the authority and the adequate resources to do the work we think is appropriate. If you feel otherwise, now is the time to amend the second recommendation and give us specific directions that are different than what we're suggesting you tell us to do.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Councilor Olson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to vote in favor of this because I think we have a staff, we have a budget, and the staff lives within the budget, and these are matters that they can deal with very well. We did have the delays in the spending because of the shortage of cash before, and I think I hear very few comments in Ward 1 about the situation with our ditches. So I'm satisfied with the program as it is, and if it means that we move some money in this direction, I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Olson. Any other comments at this time? Not seeing any? Oh, Councilor Wink.
Yeah, so just to be clear on what we're looking at and what's being presented here, reading the recommendations, the two bullet points is very clear. It's not suggesting that we're going to do the ditching on the entire River Road and Far Road, that staff is going to investigate it a little bit further and do what's required. Is that, I just want to clarify.
Yep.
So
To the Director of
let's
Public
all
Works.
sing from the same hymn book.
Yeah.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Okay. Okay, and so is council then happy with that going forward? Okay, to the clerk then.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So starting the vote with Councillor Eckert,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr,
Yes.
Councillor Niznik,
Yes.
Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
and Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
So that motion is carried. Thank you. Moving now to item 10.1.2, the establishment of the Environmental and Climate Adaptation Advisory Committee. I have a motion moved by Councillor Olson and seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that council receive report number 2023-109, the establishment of the Environmental and Climate Adaptation Advisory Committee for information, and that council for the town of Pelham confirm and establish the Environmental and Climate Adaptation Committee, and the council approve the terms of reference attached hereto as recommended by staff, and that council directs staff to seek applications from interested residents for the committee for appointment in 2023 through the balance of this term of council, with applications to be considered in closed session, with appointments to occur in open session. So, Mr. Mayor, just before I turn that back to you, I want to clarify that the report actually suggests the committee meet bi-monthly, but the terms of reference says monthly. So we'll need that direction from council, what your preference is, and we can amend the terms if you want to meet bi-monthly or adopt them as printed if you're good with monthly.
Okay, thank you. Any comments on this item in the agenda? Councilor Kerr.
It's just a furtherance in terms of embedding things. The schedule and location of meetings listed a particular meeting time, and then it had a very specific alternative date listed. Having worked on the other subcommittees, I think if it's possible that we don't have a fixed second alternative, that generally, we found with the subcommittee, we were able to find consensus for an alternative time to meet. So that's just a comment from something that's in, a new committee that's in action, and this will be a new one, so it's kind of allowing that freedom rather than fixing it.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll turn to the CEO just for any clarification.
We can certainly accommodate that. That's not an unreasonable request. My only basic point is that this is the, well, perhaps we'll make 5 more committees this term. I don't know, but this is the last one, and unlike the others that are all created simultaneously, we already have a committee meeting schedule and a finite number of staff to support those, the clerk's department. So we were throwing that in there because we knew we could support it, not necessarily because we were trying to dictate, but we do know that will work from our perspective. And we're certainly very happy to let the committee, obviously committee members ought to have some input. We have fewer windows available.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Olson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the CEO. I agree with the terms of reference entirely. The composition of the committee with the two organizations. My question has to do with the inclusion of youth in the execution of the code of conduct and the confidentiality agreements. I would certainly like to see youth involved at some point because, you know, as the saying goes in environmental circles, it's not about the planet we leave for the kids, it's the kids we leave for the planet. So, you know, I'd like to see them involved, and if there was a way of ensuring that perhaps the Mayor's Advisory Committee could be engaged in that, that would be something I would appreciate. I don't know if that takes a direction or what it does, but that would be appreciated.
To the CAO.
Ultimately, of course, we're happy to comply with any direction council sees fit to give. However, should you wish to set aside one seat on the committee for a young person, it would certainly be our recommendation that you define young person as being between 18 and 25 years of age. That typically takes in most people who are full-time students at both Brock and Niagara College and or the latter stage of high school, as the case may be. But 18 is the magic number that magically makes one an adult in this society and allows you to sign documents under your own power without a parent or guardian. The problem with a code of conduct that's signed off by a parent or a guardian, it's lawful to that point, but that person's not there in the room, and that person, so we have some pragmatic difficulties with that. The Mayor's Advisory Committee is actually a working group within the concept of the policy council approved in December of 2022. And so because of that, none of those individuals are required to sign the code of conduct. And they are all young persons, as I understand. So we avoid that problem that way. Here, because this will be an official committee, an official advisory committee, that is to say, we do anticipate asking all people who participate in it to sign that documentation, and it's dramatically easier if all those people are 18 plus. But we don't have a lot of committee membership from people who are 18, 19, 20, 21, 2, 3, or 4. So that would I'm not sure if that would scratch the itch. Certainly understand the impetus, and frankly, I agree with it. I think that makes a lot of sense. From Councillor Olson's suggestion makes a lot of sense. But if we could define young person as being 25 and under, I think it solves a lot of administrative problems.
Okay, thank you. Councillor?
So, Mr. Mayor, does that require a motion or an amendment to the terms of reference?
If you want to guarantee a spot, then the second bullet is 5 residents, and you could amend that to read 5 residents, comma, one of whom is 25 years of age or younger. Or priority will, because it's possible we won't recruit anyone, I suppose, in abstract theory. So priority to be given to, priority consideration to be given to at least one individual 25 years of age or younger. And that, I think, might accomplish the goal.
Counselor?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so does that require well, I'd be pleased to make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Clerk?
Yeah, I think I understand the comments that the CAO has made, so we will amend the terms, and we have a motion moved by Councillor Olson, so we need a seconder to amend it to include that preference be given to include at least one member, 18 to 25, on the advisory committee.
Okay. Councilor Nesnick, you're willing to second?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have a duly seconded motion on the floor. Any other comments on the motion? Councillor Kerr.
Yeah, I think we've got 5 members from the town. I think when we review these types of things, I'm a little nervous in that having gone through the other committee selections, that if we have someone who's between 18 and 25, that may not be the best selection relative to 5 other people, that we're obligated to take a person strictly based on their age and put them in the position. So I think if they're between 18 and 25, yes, there are climate groups at Niagara College, at Brock University, and others, and should they be a student and a resident of the town of Pelham, they're fully eligible, and I would think they would probably come in very qualified. But I am concerned that if we put in this age thing, that now, when we're doing a review, that just because this person fit 18 to 25, they have to get on the committee. At least that's the way it's sounding to me, when in fact there might be more qualified or better people. I'm not out to preclude them, but I'm just concerned, are we hamstringing ourselves that we're required just because of an age setup, and is it potentially discriminatory?
Okay, Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if we amend the motion that's being discussed, that preference be provided to ensure one member is a youth, the full discretion still will lie with council when they're appointing their advisory committees. You will look at the applicants in camera. You will be able to have the discussions. At the end of the day, council will determine the 5 best candidates to select. Hopefully one of those will be a youth member, but it won't hamstring council to not moving forward if we don't have any applications within that age category, or we don't feel there are any applications within that category that would best serve the committee. So I think if we amend it that way, it would cover all those concerns, show a priority for youth involvement, but allow council the flexibility to pick the best members to serve the community in that capacity.
Councilor Wink?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So just to add to Councillor Kerr's comments, we've got a potential, and I understand what everything being said, but if no youth step, or whatever term you want to put on this, if no one in that category steps forward, we've limited the number of seats on the committee to the 4 residents as opposed to 5 residents. The individuals, if you left at 5 residents and you had 3 young people that were very capable and preferable, that we would still be able to add them to this committee without specifying that we need someone between the age of 18 and 25.
I will ask the clerk to comment on the council's comments.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I thought maybe I wasn't clear that my comments were that at the end of the day, council will look at all the applications for people that want to serve on the committee. They'll be able to pick the 5 best candidates. You want to promote the idea of having youth involvement, and the amendment is that hopefully one member will fit within the youth category, but it doesn't preclude all 5 being in the youth category or none being in the youth category if the applications don't come forward to support that.
Counselor?
Well, I would refer it back to Councillor Olson, but I think the intent, as I understand it, is to try and encourage youth participation.
Councilor Olson, any comment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we're attempting to be, I think, encourage diversity, inclusion, and equity. And here's an opportunity for us to very, very clearly make a statement to the community that we value our youth, and there's, our library does it, the MCC does it, Recreation and Parks promote this kind of culture, and that's why I put the motion forward.
Okay, thank you. Again, any further comments on the motion? Councilor Kerr?
Yeah, I guess I support Councillor Wink that, and kind of following Councillor Olson, we can encourage and get all kinds of people. I'm still coming back to the ageism potential. Right now, when you look for anything, there's certain things you can ask people and certain things you don't ask people in some cases. So identifying strictly by age. But I understand the intent, Councillor Olson. I think it's a great idea, but I think if we put 5, but in our advertising and the promotion and the advancement, that there's no intention to preclude a younger person being part of it. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Any, Councilor Eckert?
I think we should be realizing that I think we're all on the same page on this table here of who we would like to possibly see from the applicants. And so when we have these discussions in closed session, which we do for all committees, that's the place where I'm sure there's going to be strong representation from members of council to include young people in this area. So I understand Councillor Olson's motion, but I would not be in support of the amendment. And I think it's up to council to walk the walk when we come time to appointing people on this council, on this committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments on the motion before us? Not seeing any. Mr. Clerk, please call the vote.
Yes, so to be clear for council, this is the amendment, commencing the vote with Councillor Hildebrand.
No.
Councillor Kerr.
No.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink. No. Councillor Eckhart.
No.
Mayor Junkin.
No.
That motion is defeated, 4-3. So now moving back to the main motion for consideration, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, okay. Any further discussion on the main motion? Not seeing any, Mr. Clerk?
So just before I commence with that, I just wanted clarification. So the terms of reference do call for monthly meetings. Are council comfortable with that at this stage?
Appears so.
Okay. So commencing the vote with Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
So that motion is carried. Thank you. Now moving to item 10.1.3, that the proposed strategic plan timelines. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Niznik and seconded by Councillor Eckhart. Be it resolved that council receive the report 2023-0106, the proposed strategic plan action item completion timelines for information, and that council endorse the proposed timelines in principle. Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion from council on this item on the agenda? Not seeing any, Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commencing the vote with Councillor Kerr,
Yes.
Councillor Niznik,
Yes.
Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand,
Yes.
and Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
So that motion's carried. Thank you. Moving now to 10.1.4, Pelham Communities in Bloom, 2023, 24, and 23 to, and report number. I have a motion moved by Councillor Olson and seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that council will receive the report 2023-0107, Pelham Communities in Bloom, 2023 to 2024 for information, and that in furtherance of the strategic plans actions item to pursue community gardens, communities in bloom, green public participation, staff requests council support to participate in the 2023 Miracle Grow Best Garden Selection Program from Scotts Canada, and the council implement the Communities in Bloom program for 2024, and the council direct staff to include a Communities in Bloom program budget of $10,000 in the 2024 budget for council's consideration, and the council approve the draft terms of reference for a Communities in Bloom volunteer working group for 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Any discussion, questions on this item? Not seeing any, Mr. Clerk?
Starting with the vote, Councillor Niznik,
Yes.
Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand,
Yes.
Councillor Kerr,
Yes.
and Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
That motion is carried. Thank you. So now we have nothing under unfinished business.
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, wait. Council Olson?
Yes, through you, are we going to talk about the region's report? I believe it was on Regional Planning Commissioner's report. Is that going to be one of our items? Or did I miss that?
That was under the consent agenda.
Oh, this, that's on new business. Is this one?
No, he was going back to this one.
Oh, that was on the, that's the item on the consent agenda, Olson, Councilor Olson?
Perhaps I missed that. I'm not sure, Mr. Mayor.
I take it, yeah, Councilor Ness, wait, let me deal with Councilor Olson. So, Mr. Clerk, what's the procedure here?
So we have adopted a resolution to receive that for information. There's nothing that precludes council from going back. If a councilor has questions, it's at the discretion of the chair. Your
Okay.
worship.
Councilor Olson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that. My question was through you to the Director of Planning. How many units do we have development ready on our books at this time that are available for immediate development?
To the Director of Planning, Ms. Weens.
Mr. Mayor, through you, we have in the order of 450 units that are approved in draft plans of subdivision and are unbuilt and/or are in draft approved plans of subdivisions.
Thank you. Councilor?
So is that a high number of that we have there, or is that a high inventory?
Mr. Mayor, through you, that would represent probably about a 7 to 8 year supply of housing units for the town of Pelham.
To the councilor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So that's we have approved and ready to, well, not ready to go, I guess, 7 or 8 years of approved.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, certainly with what is in registered plans of subdivision and that are unbuilt, and then what is in draft approved plans of subdivision pending final approval. So that's certainly is a healthy supply.
Thank you. Councilor?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Now, Councilor Nesnick, go ahead.
Sorry, just to go back to Mountain View Lemonade Day, there was a proclamation. Does that need to be approved by council?
That proclamation was already approved, so it was just for information.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Back to you, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So nothing under item number 11 for unfinished business. Under 12, new business, we do have something that was brought forward by Councillor Olson, and it's consideration of making an application to request through the FCM to host one of their directors' meetings in either 2025 or 2026. I don't have a motion, but perhaps Councillor Olson would like to speak to that.
Councillor Olson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sure we've, many of us received this communique from Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and if we didn't, I've had them copied and distributed. They're looking for a request for proposal to host Board of Directors meetings in 25 and 26. And the time date on this is RFP closing date is Friday, June the 30th. So there's a time factor included in this. But why I'm proposing this as something we consider and ask for the documentation is because the federal government gives a lot of discretion to FCM in distributing grants and for building and for environment. And I think it'd be a prestige thing if we could host one of the Board of Directors meetings here, and I'm suggesting probably 25, 26 in the month of September, away from the March break. So it's just would like to request the package and see what it involves.
Excellent, and that is exactly, thank you for clarifying that. We're requesting the package so that we can see what this would cost us and the protocol involved in that. Is that
That's
correct,
right.
Councillor?
That's
Excellent.
right.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Clerk? We just,
Yeah, so looking to the CAO, I think just we've heard the direction. We'll get the RFP package and the staff review it and provide information back to council before the application deadline. So
excellent. So, Mr. CO, you will just take this as direction then?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Back to you, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we're now moving to item number 13 on your agenda, which is the presentation and consideration of bylaws. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Wink and seconded by Councillor Eckhart. Be it resolved, the Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaw, do now read a first, second, and third time and do pass same, and that the Mayor and Clerk be here and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaw. One being a bylaw 29, 2023, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 13, 2023, confirming various appointments to advisory committees of the Town of Pelham for the 2022 to 2026 term of council, and to appoint members to the Pelham Active Transportation Committee and the Pelham Cultural Advisory Committee. To a bylaw 30-2023, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 4307, 2021, as amended, being an administrative authority bylaw to delegate certain powers and duties under the Municipal Act and other acts as contained in the schedule attached thereto. Number 3, bylaw 31, 2023, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 4504, 2022, to establish 2023 fees and charges to be collected by the Town of Pelham, and to add to the fees and charges to the Clerk's Department schedule.
Okay, thank you. Any comments on this, on the bylaws presented? Not seeing any, Mr. Clerk?
Starting with the vote, Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
That motion is carried. Thank you. We have a notice of motion by Councillor Olson concerning the Old Town Hall.
Okay, Councillor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. At our next meeting of council, I intend to bring a motion to declare the Old Town Hall as a cultural center for the town of Pelham. In brief, we all agree that the town hall is an iconic structure in its location and its location with the cenotaph. That's an important building, and it deserves to be properly maintained and recognized. There are grants, I'm convinced, that will fund the change into a proper cultural center, including the access for accessibility and all the rest of the things that will go along with having a building like that. But this town has a need for this type of a building, and I believe if I was to ask the Director of Recreation and Culture and Wellness that, well, I will ask her, how much is that building used this time?
To the director, I really, this is actually getting a little more detailed
Okay,
than
then,
needed.
Mr. Mayor, then I will forgo the question then and just leave this as a notice that I'll bring that motion at the next meeting.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Mr. Mayor, so moving on, we have no motions to move in camera this morning. So we'll move to item number 17, the confirmatory bylaw. I have a motion moved by Councillor Kerr and seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and passed, being a bylaw number 32-2023, to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of council of the town of Pelham at its regular meeting held this third day of May 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Any discussion? Not seeing any?
Starting the vote with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson. Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
That motion is carried. Thank you. Moving now to my favorite motion, number 18, the adjournment. I have a motion moved by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved that this regular meeting of council be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for May 17th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. I think that's a typo, 9 a.m.
Any further discussion, council? Not seeing any?
Commencing the vote, Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
The motion is carried.
I gavel the meeting out. Thank you.